Good morning. Several years ago, I had a business with a friend of mine. We made shirts for different motorcycle, car rallies, sometimes Christmas shows. But we worked out of her house. So 3 or 4 days a week, I would drive to her house, which wasn't a bad drive because it was all country back roads. So the 30 minutes went by pretty quickly and it wasn't stressful. Now, I had been doing that for at least 3 years at the point of the story. And we had a big rally coming up, so we had worked late. It was dark and it was pouring down rain. I came home. I wasn't worried about it because, I'd driven home at night before and in the rain before. But it was pouring down this particular night. And as I was coming home, there's this one stretch right before you get to the road that takes you to my house that has several four-way stop signs at it. So I was going through the stop signs and I got to, I think it was maybe the fourth four-way stop sign. And I noticed ahead that there were blue lights flashing, there was red lights flashing. So there was 2 police cars, there was an ambulance, there was a fire truck. And I noticed as I got a little closer that there was a car in the ditch. There was a bad accident that had happened there. It was still pouring down rain pretty hard. And I got so distracted by all the lights and everything around me that was upsetting that I didn't realize that was my stop sign to turn at. So I went straight through the stop sign at that point, and I didn't drive very far, maybe 3 or 4 blocks. And even in the rain and the dark, I was looking around and nothing looks familiar, which I should have been able to recognize something. So I started looking for a safe place to pull over. I probably drove 1.5, 2 miles maybe by that point. I finally found a safe place to pull over, and I pulled up my GPS on my phone. Yay, GPS. I put in my home address and it brought me back to my house, so to my safety. So I did get there safely, but I was very unnerved and a little bit shaken up just from I felt so lost. I didn't know where I was. And that's really a scary feeling. Well, that story reminded me of the time that Jesus and his disciples had been out talking to people. As a matter of fact, Jesus had just fed 5,000 people with 5 loaves and 2 fish. After that incident, he sent the disciples across the lake in a boat. He said, I'll meet you on the other side. Jesus went up to the mountain to pray. And by the time he came back down, it was dark. So Jesus, because he was Jesus, he just started taking the shortcut, walking across the water because he could do that. Well, as Jesus was walking, there were waves. The disciples were looking and they could see this shape walking on the waves, and they were a little bit scared. They were wondering if it was a ghost or something. And they called out, and Jesus said, don't be afraid, it's just me. I'll be there in just a minute. And Peter, who was known for speaking or even doing something before he thought things through, which I have to admit I can be a little bit prone to do that myself. But Peter called out to Jesus, if that's really you, Jesus, then tell me to come out of the boat and to walk on the water. So Jesus said, well, come on, get out of the boat and walk on the water. He held his hands out. Well, Peter got out of the boat with every single bit of confidence. And he started walking towards Jesus. No worries at all, until he took his eyes off of Jesus and he started looking around him, and he noticed that there were waves and this was really dangerous and scary. Well, when he took his eyes off of Jesus and started focusing on the circumstances around him, he started sinking. So he called out for Jesus to help him, and Jesus did. He gave him his hand and pulled him up until Peter was standing on top of the water once again, that he had his focus on Jesus. Well, don't we all do that? I know in my life, especially when I've taken my eyes off of Jesus and focused on the circumstances around me, it can be very frightening. It can be a cancer diagnosis or money problems. How are you going to pay for your bills and your relationships? When we focus on those things instead of Jesus, we start sinking. We start being fearful and afraid and no confidence whatsoever. So I'm here with good news, because when that starts happening, here is your answer: your Bible. Prayer in your Bible. When you start focusing back on Jesus, focusing on his word, and reading the reminders of what he will do for you and who he is, you're not afraid anymore. When you start talking to him instead of focusing on all the terrible things that can happen, your focus, your compass, or your North Star, whatever you want to call it, Jesus is the focus. He is the answer. So I encourage you, the next time you feel like you're losing your way or you're getting frightened and you know that you are taking your eyes off of Jesus, refocus your eyes. Refocus your eyes on Jesus. Read your Bible, praying, and you will have your North Star again. You will find your way.